great. Fantastic. How's everybody doing? Craziness out there, huh? Absolutely crazy. So we just got to like stay with what we're comfortable with, what we enjoy, and the things that make us happy. And painting makes me happy. So that's what we do. And showing you guys how I do it is somewhat normal to me. It's very normal to me. So any little pieces to make ourselves feel normal it works for me. So let's see who's on. I want to just take a peek. Okay. Melissa, I don't know if I know you. Christine, hello. Lori, hi. Pat, Helen, Claudia, hello. Florence, Sandra J. You know, I was supposed to be named Sandra when I was born. Didn't work out that way, but Josephine, hello. Elaine, and I got, oh, Matt, hi, Matt. Anne is on, Kimberly, Kathleen, Michelle's on. Hi, guys. A lot of faces I recognize. That's always so nice. Sandra, out there with your cocktail? I see you outside. I may have to get a refill before I start. I don't know. I'm already sniffing it. Not to talk liquor, but somebody turned me on to rum chata. Wow. Makes me very happy. Okay, people still coming on.
I haven't tried that one.
So last week we did that little girl. Let me just get her. Where'd it go? I had it somewhere. I tend to put things someplace and then I can't find them. Anyway, we painted that little girl, and I don't know her name, but I found out who her grandmother is, and it's one of my students. So it was somebody who had sent me that. Oh, here it is. This is what we painted last week. So her grandmother was thrilled. I don't know if she's going to be on today, Leona. It was when her daughter was 4, and her daughter's like a grown woman, you know, in business and whatnot now. So it makes me so happy to know it's going to go to a good home and somebody that I really enjoy having around. So today, I don't really know what I'm going to pick, but I did pick something today. So I've got 2 dogs that are kind of snuggled up together. And like I said, because watercolors are, you leave your whites, I'll be able to probably get through them. That's the fun of it. That's the challenge of it. We'll see how I do.
Well, Jan, we had about 80 or 100 people on last week, but your YouTube video from last week has had over 240 views.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, that makes me so happy. Thank you for that. Thank you for doing this, Susan. Really, it makes me so happy, and I'm glad I could bring an hour of just, I don't know, reckless abandon. That's the way I paint. So you're right there with me, all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sponsoring this. Really, Susan. It's
my pleasure.
Don't know when we're going to get back to classes, actual physical classes. So this is the next
best thing.
Next best thing we've got. Yeah, this is the next best thing we have.
So you can start whenever you like.
Okay. Well, I'm going to switch my camera then. And I'm going to go to this. This is my camera, the camera that's down. And I'm going to point out exactly what I'll be painting again. It was a photograph that was sent to me of these 2 dogs snuggling. And I do think that I'll be able to get through it because 3/4 of that dog is white and almost all of that dog is white. So that's why I said, I think I could do this one. And of course, I know whose dog this is, and it's a very dear friend of mine. And it makes me happy to be able to to bring that to us, to you guys today. And I'm just getting my arsenal of brushes together. I got my paints together, got my water, and I'm ready to go. So, oh, you know what I don't have on is my glasses. Okay, let's get those on. So, for me, when I'm starting any type of a portrait, the first thing I really want to get is the eyes. So I am going to start with this. This is a very interesting dog. It's one of those dogs that has one blue eye and one brown eye. I love that. So that's so cool, right? So, and unlike last week, I really wasn't able to, because it was a little girl, I really wasn't able to give her outline. But, our dogs have this black outline around their eyes. So I really am able to do that pretty quickly and give them that nice dark eyeliner that they have. And I will be playing Howie Emerson again today, if that's okay with you guys. This is Howard Emerson. He is a local talent that records at my husband's recording studio. And he has given me permission, which is important for, YouTube, to have permission to put music on. Of course, it's not going through a mixing board, so I'm so sorry, Howard. It's only going through my little speakers here and coming to everybody through Zoom. Now that blue eye is such a light color, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in right now. If I have too much color down and I just need to move it, I take my brush and I take the water and move it that way. And really all I have to do is hold on to that white highlight that's in his eye, the inside of his eye that is the darker pupil color. I don't have to save that as a dark. So in watercolors, I often will say, don't save your darks. And that's what I mean when I say that you don't have to save your darks. You go over your darks. And it makes it really a wonderful painting. So this is really odd. I've never done a dog with two different color eyes before. Just letting some of this dark kind of seep in. And here we go over here, and that's a brown eye. So I'm just going to grab some burnt sienna, I think it is, or raw sienna. I don't know what it is. One of my browns. I don't use brown too often. And listen, come in anytime if you have a question. Just ask it away. Sue will read it to me. I can't see it, but Sue can, and she could just ask me any question as I'm painting. If you want to know anything about my colors, my process, anything at all, come on in. That feels normal to me also. So anything to make you and I feel as normal as possible, I'm all for. Now the next best thing, while those are drying, I do want to get the nose. That's a very large nose I've got going on here. Take a look again, you guys. I'll try to put this here so you could see a little bit of what I've got going on. That's a lot of nose, but that's okay. We're gonna play with that. I also see things moving in my eye. So as I see things happening, I just might have to do a little correction just to keep that very, oh, so Sadie is here. That's Sadie. Okay, I got my little rug right here. Come here. Okay, come here. Sadie is with me. Sadie is a Maltipoo. She's my niece's dog, and she just walked in the door, so she's very excited. So just stay, relax. I know you haven't seen me. I know, sweetheart. Okay. All right. Let's get that nose. Okay. I got a little rug right on my lap now. This will make it even more interesting to paint. Let's get that nose. That's really important. So with a dog's nose, there's a top part and then there's a part that comes down. And so we want to get those nostrils. Let me just see here a little bit more. So the nostrils are probably the darkest spot. Okay, yes. Well, we have sound effects now too. We have live dog sound effects. Oh, and there's a little head coming into the camera. Okay, I probably shouldn't have drank. Yes, I know, sweetheart. Okay. Well, just makes it that much more real, right? Now to get this very dark, this is my indigo here, to get the nose. It might take a few passes to get this right, but my nose has got to be the darkest, one of the darkest things going on here. So that's my indigo. And what I do is rather than going, I don't use black or any color like that. So what I'm probably going to do is just add what I call a little bit of secret sauce, which really comes down to a color that blends with other colors and gives you an opportunity to build a nice deep dark. So what that means to me is just feathering this out, just feathering it out, because that's sort of what's going on here. So what that means to me is my ability to build a dark. And so when I build a dark, I'm going to be using all my dark colors. And when I use my dark colors, certainly my indigo is one of my darkest colors. And then I can go ahead and add, believe it or not, a little violet. And this is how I build my darks. So and you'll be able to tell this and you'll understand what I'm saying when I say build a dark. So what happens with darks is, especially with blacks, is if you go outside, right, in a black shirt and black pants, let's say, and you let the sun hit it, you're going to have maybe a couple of different blacks. One might be more purple, one might be more bluish. You're going to see different colors going on. And so it's the dye, the pigments and whatnot that's going on. So the same thing holds true when I'm finding a black. When I'm looking to do a dark, I will do, here's my brown, right? That's a little brown in there. On top of my blue, I added a little pink because dogs' nose always have a little bit of pink in them.
Jan, somebody noticed that you have new brushes.
Yes, these were a gift. Well, thank you for noticing, whoever that was. Wow, you must know me pretty well. It was actually a gift from one of my students, and it is it was a whole set of brushes from Scurti, S-C-U-R-T-I. It was a whole set, and it's just sort of been sitting there, not me using it. And then there was a particular size that made a lot of sense for what I was doing. I was doing actually a pet portrait for a commission. And there was this one that, I don't know if you could see that, it kind of has like chopped up hairs. Well, it really, really helped me to do that hair that is sort of coursing through the hair. It was curly haired dogs, which are the hardest to do. So yes, thank you for noticing. Wow.
Jan is still on the brushes. Marcy would like to know if you use mostly sable brushes, and if
actually,
so, which
I don't.
company do you think is best? I
do not use sable. I don't like sable. I find that they're just a little too fussy, and after a while, they just really are not too impressive anymore. So I've really gotten down to not using sables. I have to say, nowadays, the ones that are and I don't even use squirrel, they're mostly synthetics, and they're really, really fabulous. They've gotten so good at the synthetics, and there's really no need to worry about any animal's fur anymore, I have to say. So I do not use sable. No real reason to, actually, is what I found, that there's just doesn't really give me anything more than, and what I like about the brushes that are synthetic is that they're very snappy. So I find that the sables sort of are lazy and they get a little bit out of shape quickly. And what I love about these is that there's a snap to them, which I really value that snap. So good questions. Right, this is dry here, so I'm just going to go in and do the pupil. And I am going to hold on to that nice white highlight that's in his eye. like to do eyes like in stages. Because what's going to happen is things are going to dry a little lighter. Watercolors generally dry a little lighter. So you want to be able to just make sure that you could always go back and find a nice deep dark that you could build. So it might take a couple times to get them quite the color I want, but that's okay. Sadie just wants to say hi to everybody. I have painted Sadie also. When we first, my niece first got her, there's her little nose in there. When my niece first got her, we were puppy sitting, and she she ended up in my husband's shoe. She was that small. Of course, she would not fit in there now, but at one point she did. So I just want this to dry, so I'm just going to turn the page so I can build this without worrying about that too much. I just don't want my hand hitting certain areas. Okay, there's a lot of movement here on the nose, but I think that's okay because I know I have to go darker and I have to build some more. So that's okay. I'm not done yet. So I remember taking a workshop with somebody once, and he called his dark that he makes his secret sauce. And that's sort of what I'm building here, is some secret sauce. Nice, deep, rich, dark colors. So I usually achieve secret sauce with indigo, my Van Dyke brown, not a color I use very often, my Van Dyke brown, and a nice deep violet. Let that sort of move as it's going to move. That looks good. And it is not true that you can't correct watercolors, because I'm just simply lifting this one side. The color moved there a little bit more than I wanted it to. So all I have to do is take my brush, and it lifts very, very nicely. Easy, easy breezy. Not a problem there. Okay, I'm going to want to get on this other dog's eye because I know the eyes are going to matter, and I know I could go pretty quick with their hair, so the eyes really take me the most amount of time. I had 2 Bijans at one point, and this was, I'd find them in a very similar way, always nose to nose. It was just the cutest. Lined together. It's such a sweet thing. Now this other eye looks very dark, so I'm just going to go super dark with this other eye. What I love about a portrait, or even a travel memory, or whatever you're painting, what I love about the idea of making it a painting is that it turns just any old photo into a piece of art that you would hang. You normally wouldn't just take a photo like this and, hang it. But when you have it as a piece of artwork, it changes it. It changes your perspective of that moment. Let's get that other nose. Easy to lift. I just want to get the top of his nose to catch the light. So I could just lift that a little bit right there. Perfect. And then I could always go a little darker as need be. Okay, let's go over here. Because the photo is sort of distorted, with their noses coming right at us, it's kind of funny. You don't see a lot of detail. So I just have to imagine a whole lot of stuff, which is fine. And it's about interpreting, it's really about finding, well, this moved again. So I'm just going to lift this up with a dry brush. I'm using my dish mat here to just sort of give it a little lift because it's still wet, and I want to come over here with the other nose, and I don't want it to bleed into that. Soften this edge where the nose sort of comes into their little face. And these dogs sort of have very interesting markings, so certainly when you get that, the owner will know. And after all, it's a painting, so you want to have it be painterly. You have the photo, so you just want a nice interpretation of that moment. And I chose these images to paint. I think I had mentioned last week that I was supposed to take a workshop, and of course it didn't run. And I ended up with all these photos that I had chosen that I really wanted to paint. And, you know, it created the start of a Jan Cam for me where, well, let me just paint them and let the owner sort of come on in and watch me paint their pet or their person, their child or grandchild or whatever it is. Okay, a lot of this is going to be white, so you might think, well, how do you build other things? Around this dog's eye is a very nice brown. So I'm going to go into my burnt sienna, I think this is, and start that whole, it's a very distinctive bullseye shape around his eye. So you just kind of have to have a little bit of confidence to go in and make some of these marks. And maybe soften some of these edges. So what I do when I soften is I just take everything off my brush and I just come in with just a little bit of water and I just feather it around. And that's my husband. So, honey, I'm on a class. I can't talk right now. 6 o'clock. Let me run. I'm live right now, honey. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. He forgets. Just goes to show you this is not rehearsed. This is just live here going on. Get that corner even darker. I would use a little indigo to go a little darker in that corner right there. And that just blended so perfectly right there. And where you want to soften your edges, you just carry a little bit of water and the watercolor just moves. I've got some marks right there. Just lift those off. Easy to fix a watercolor. It really is. There's all kinds of ways in which we fix watercolors. And I like that it's definitely, is the right word, a misnomer, a misconception that we can't fix a watercolor. I'm not a words person, but it sounds kind of right. That maybe a misnomer. Does that sound about right? Anyway, I hope I don't sound too dumb on this call. Misconception. How about that? I know I can't go wrong with by saying misconception. Corners of the eyes, we want to get a little bit of pink. Inside the corners of a dog's eyes are a little bit pink, so we just want to get a little bit of that in there. Okay, you could see why I thought maybe I could do this, because I'm sort of getting, a good amount done. Of course, I do want to go back and work on the noses a little bit, but I really want that to all dry first. So I got an ear over here. That's sort of a lighter brown right here. And again, just soften any edges, maybe even with a slightly bigger brush that you just want to have If you don't want to have a hard edge, you just can just soften it a little bit like that. And there's no real, like, it's fur, so it's not like you have a lot of hair to worry about here. So it does make the shapes of all of them a whole lot easier to paint. If this were a fluffy dog, I don't think I would be able to get through quite as much as I'll be able to with these dogs, because I just don't, I'm not painting fur, I'm painting the shapes of their spots, basically. Right? And I'm like, okay, nothing like putting a little pressure on myself. Just lifting the top of his nose a little bit, just getting a little bit of that color off of there. These are still very damp, so I'm not going to touch them. There's a little bit of pink in some of these areas on these dogs, so I have a beautiful pink that I get to use, which is just perfect for situations like that. Very soft. I try to just use colors that I have in my palette. I try not to mix too much. But if I do mix, I mix on my paper 99% of the time, except for situations like maybe last week when I was doing skin tones. I do want to make sure I have a good skin tone to have it really look just about right. But with that said, I was mostly mixing on the paper.
Jan, somebody wanted to know, how do you stop the various dark colors from looking like mud?
So you get mud when you don't understand your color wheel. And understanding color wheel, we talked about it a little bit last week, which was using blues and oranges to tone down certain colors. Those are complementary colors, and they're very helpful to know that those are complements, that they sit well next to each other, but they tone each other down a whole lot. Knowing that orange and blue, red and green, yellow and violet, those are the big complements. Those are the colors. And if you think about it, you have orange and you have red and green, which is, a Christmas combination. They sit well next to each other, but if you watch them, they do tend to, they sit next to each other very nicely, but they also will, if they touch in watercolor, they'll mix and they'll tone each other down. So your bright green will get a little bit softer and not as vibrant if you use a little red in it. And so you could tone colors down, and it's this whole chemistry thing that happens when you're painting. You learn a great combination is violet and yellow. It's a beautiful combination, and you really do get a chance to have to create what could be beautiful mud. So I'm answering your question in kind of a roundabout way, but but knowing what colors do create mud and not wanting to pre-mix them. So that's why if I mix my colors, and I've done this demo lots and lots of times in classes, if I over mix my colors in my palette, I will get mud. However, if I allow the paints to move themselves and like do a very, very light premix, and you still see the violet and you still see the yellow, and I did that a little bit in her hair last week, right? You still see those two colors, but they are toning each other down in a very nice way. So it's a very interesting way to do it. And I like working that way. I really do. I love the idea that those two colors can come together, and yet they will be they'll hold on to each of the properties, but they'll tone each other down. So the way I avoid mud is I don't pre-mix too much in my palette, and I know what colors create mud, and I'm very careful about how I use them and the way I use them. And it's a long answer for a very complex process. And a lot of watercolors do get mud, and they get mud because there's a few reasons why a watercolorist will get mud. Just in general, they don't understand their color wheel, and that's super, super important. Or they may not, they may overmix in their palette. Another reason that you could get mud, because you don't understand color wheel and you are over mixing your colors. Or the reason is you may be working damp. And so I don't work on a damp paper. So remember I said I was going to avoid this area because it was still damp. Working damp will definitely give you unexpected results and therefore could potentially create mud. And so you want to be careful of that. So long-winded answer, I apologize, but it's a number of reasons why you get mud. And it's trial and error. There's no real definitive way in which you avoid it except to practice it.
Jan, one of
Yeah.
your watchers said that she noticed that you have a YouTube video on the color wheel, which might help some people.
Yes, I do. And thank you for reminding me about that. I do have a very, it's short, but it is pretty comprehensive. Oh, and Sadie's talking. Yes, I do. I have a lot of, YouTube videos that might actually help people to know their colors, and you could definitely see what I'm using in terms of my own colors and how I'm getting the results that I am. So yeah, thank you whoever said that, because that is absolutely the truth. I do have YouTube video on color wheel. And there's a lot of information out there. I think, you know, when it comes to recognizing what it is you want your results to be is where you start really getting a definite feeling for what colors, what makes you happy, where you really want to put an emphasis. Okay, let's see. I do like what's going on there. There's some nice darks I want to build in here. You can see because we left so much white, I really am able to get around it pretty quickly. I do run, I ran a basics class about a month ago, I want to say, and it was very good. And you know what, if I have enough people who are interested, I could do it again. I am in the process of putting a whole lot of my recordings of my classes up also. I don't know if my millennial Jen is on, but she's hard at working on all my requests and things like that. And she said she didn't mind me calling her my millennial, because she is. Need a little bit more on that eye, so I'm just going to flip it around because I could find a dry spot to work here. So you could see building my darks is really what you have to do with a situation like this. Is it dries a little lighter, so you just need to make sure you go back in and get the consistency that you want. And that blue eye is really just so spectacular. Let's see what we got here. Just kind of waiting for things to dry a little bit. I try to find areas that I can work on that allow other areas to dry and not over disturb anything. And watercolor is an interesting medium because it really is very much about lost edges and found edges. So we want to be sure we do find edges that we can lose and edges that we can find. I'm just going to get a little tissue. I just want to lift a little bit right here. Got a little darker than I wanted. Yeah, right there. Perfect.
Jan,
what
I have
color
a
you just
question
built?
for you.
Yeah.
She said, sorry, she's going back a bit, but what is the paint color you're using for the corner of the eye?
Yeah, that's a good color and it's a good question. And it's a color that is actually, and I apologize, not available anymore by Holbein. It's a very soft pink called gray violet, I think. However, you can create a color like that by using any bright pink and adding a little white to it. So, and it is a little chalky, milky in terms of the color that way. So it's just one of those colors that you'd probably have to mix. I happen to have it right here in my palette right here. This is it's called violet gray or gray violet and gray blue or something like that. They were Holbein colors. They were discontinued, unfortunately, and you can't get them anymore. But they were really good colors. Sorry. But I have found that you can achieve those colors by mixing those colors, any bright pink or any blue, like a cobalt or cerulean, with a little bit of white. And I'm not a big mixer with white, but in a case like that, I think it really would work very well if you're looking for a soft pink like that. And I'm unfortunately they discontinued it, so I'm so sorry to say that. But it's a good question. Now, what I want to do is I want to build a little bit of a background, a little suggestion of a background. And there's a little bit of separation in between the two of them, which I have to get also. So let me see. I don't want to go into a wet area. So I'm going to mix a little bit of my violet in here with my indigo just to get a nice dark. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that color softer into the background. So what I would call that is reverse definition. And what I mean by that is that basically the negative space between them is what actually created the edge for both of their faces. So it's a way in which we create an approach to defining something by painting the background. All right.
Sorry for the delay. There was a few questions that came in while the fire whistle was blaring. So we have someone who wants to know, can anyone submit artwork to be painted?
Oh, you mean photographs to be painted? You can. I mean, again, I did it because I was supposed to take this workshop. So that was why I actually had asked people to post it on Facebook a while ago. And so the workshop didn't happen, but if you want to send me something, and if it, I really did pick how can I say that what I felt was just the perfect images to paint, or let's put it this way, the ones that I wanted, that I felt that I would get a really good result with. So you can always send them to me. I don't know. I mean, we only have a few more of these that we're doing, so I don't really know how many more I'll be doing of these. Okay, that's a really nice soft background. I'm going to drop a little of that blue in there also in spots. What this does is a very interesting thing. By picking up the colors that I have in here, okay, I picked up a little bit of the pink and a little bit of that blue. And what I'm doing now is I'm letting it roll. I'm just letting the colors sort of melt and move together. And what it does is it does what I call and is called bridging the palette. And what that means is that the colors that I used in one spot is now being used in other spots. So it's not just exclusively in one area. Okay, so it helps it look more painterly and a little bit more complete when you think of a painting in that way. So for instance, you might see, I don't know, something that doesn't necessarily have a color that you're using in one area in another. Well, meaning like maybe a violet. Maybe you see a violet in one area and you don't see it anywhere else. By introducing it into other places, you then create a very painterly approach to it, and you give yourself an opportunity to bridge the palette. So for instance, if you have a red or a blue, you can easily drop in a little bit of violet, that violet, to give it a more complete look. And it's interesting how it works. Nobody really says, wow, why did you drop that violet in there? Because violet is made up of blue and red. So you can easily get away with something like that. I'll have to look for a painting that does that. I mean, probably all my paintings do that, but that's, you know, an idea for you. There's a wonderful softness back here. I'm going to create a little bit of that here. A little bit of his jawline here, and there's a little bit of his skin tone here. And then he's kind of resting on something, but I don't know that I have to suggest that. So that's another piece of painting, guys, is that just because it's there does not mean you have to do it all. You don't have to show it all. You don't have to paint it all. You get to choose. You get to choose exactly what you want to paint. You could move people around and things around. It's like, it's just doesn't, you know, your photo, you don't have to be a slave to your photo. And I find, you know, students do fall, you know, sort of prey to that quickly. Oh, but it's there. Oh, but that's what I see. And it's good to see stuff, but it's also really good to take away that which isn't serving your photo, you know, your painting. Areas that I may want to soften a little bit, just take my brush and just go in and just soften this area a little bit with a little bit of water. It doesn't have to be quite, you sort of have a widow's peak. It's kind of cute. Very distinctive markings. So you want to be sure you get those when you're painting a portrait of a pet. That's what I look for, is distinctive markings. I did this pet portrait the other night, and the picture that they sent to me, I could not see the dog's eyes. And I'm like, well, so what color are those eyes? Because it didn't make sense. It's like his fur was covering him up. And so I'm like, I really need to see those eyes. And it turned out that the eyes were a hazel color. And I'm like, oh man, it would have been a shame to miss that. I want to get some more of that pink spot right here. I really like that spot. So I'm just going to play it up a little bit more, just by putting a little in the center and softening those edges. So watercolor is a lot about hard edges and soft edges. So how you control those and how you feel about them, and, you know, where you find lost edges and where you find soft edges, lost and found, hard edges. You know, there's some hard edges and soft edges. And that's really such a big part of, to me, watercolors, is where you're comfortable doing that. I want to get a little bit of the light part of his nose a little bit lighter. And so I'm going to use a nice trick that I have. And that is, if I could find it, a Mr. Clean magic eraser. So Mr. Clean, little piece, I'm just dipping it in my water, and I can lift with that any area that I need to soften or lift back to the paper. That's a good one. That's a good one. It is not true you can't control or fix a watercolor. That's a good one for you watercolor painters out there. Sadie thinks so too. She's harumphing over here. Some people get a little nervous when they see things blossoming out, but I kind of like that about watercolors. In fact, I love that about watercolors. So I look to have that happen wherever I can, and then sort of see if I need to control it or if I could just let it go. In that case, it just blossomed out so beautifully. I don't want to touch it. I mean, how much do you need to, more do you need to do to say dog? And how much more do you need to do to say these dogs? So I'll just bring the photo in a little bit. See a couple of things I could correct. A little softening of the eye right there. I was down here, so I don't want to lose my track down here. Honestly, guys, I just don't know how much more I really want to do. What time is it? Okay, we're coming up to like 40 minutes here. To me, I could spend a lot of time perfecting this, but I don't necessarily think it'll make a better painting. And that's where you have to sort of find your own way with that, is how much do you need to do to have it be a painting and have it be painterly and have it be something that you get across the information that you want to get across without overdoing it. I see very, very, very realistic paintings going on. And listen, I that is just not me. I'm just not about that. I never was. I feel, you know, and this is not to say anything wrong with it. It's just not what I feel why I want to paint. I want to paint to interpret and to have an interpretation of this moment. I don't want an exact replication because I feel you have the photo. What do you need anything more for? If you like the photo so much, what would a high realism photograph of painting get you? So that's just my take. It doesn't make me right and anybody else wrong. It's just my take on it and how I feel about why I paint the way I do. And it's important to know why you paint the way you do, or why you know, there's so much room for so many different types of styles out there. I added a little violet in there, which I really like. That really popped that out. I'm pretty happy with this, guys. I don't really know how much more I want to do. Sometimes I do let a painting rest, and I do go back and find, I just want to do it like some kind of corrections, because as I said before, they do dry lighter. And so sometimes I do want to go back in and make some little corrections with it. But for the most part, I think I have what I wanted down here. And I painted 2 dogs.
Looks good to me, Jan.
And I drank too. I did drink.
Thank you very much.
I'm a lightweight. I just had a little rum chata, guys. So here is the painting and here's the photo. And I'm trying to see how I could show this to you sort of side by side. Maybe I could go a little darker in here, but I don't know. It kind of feels right to me like that. So I'm going to let it rest. And I do feel it's important to let a painting rest before you know, what I'll do sometimes also is I will what I might do is put it on a frame vertical and put it in my art studio, and then just look at it fresh as if it is on a wall and it is framed. And so that gives me a bit of a feeling of, is it complete? Because right now I'm facing down when I'm looking at this, but if you put it vertical, where is it? A frame. Let me just get a little frame here. Yes, I see you, Steve. Okay, so here's just a frame. It's got something else in there. But when I do this, okay, and I just even tape it to the front, I don't even have to frame it. I just need to see it in a frame, in a mat. Then it gives me a better understanding, because this is how it's going to be viewed in someone's home, in your home. And so I like to take that extra time before I hand over a commission and just have it hang vertical on a frame. I'll just tape this right to whatever I have and see if it needs anything else. Because when we're painting 2 inches from our noses, right? When we put it this way, it's vertical and it's on a wall and you're away from it. And so whenever I do this in class, everybody's like, oh, it looks so much better. Like, you know, it's not just that it's from a distance, that isn't it at all. It's that you're looking at it as art, matted and framed. And that changes what the perceived completion is. You may think I need to do more, but you're thinking of that because it's so close to your nose. You know, you're looking at every little mistake, but maybe it's not a mistake at all. And when you do this, I'm really happy with that. And so this is a very, very, very good tool. I'm going to show you guys one other tool that I like to use. And that is right over here. I do this again a lot in class. And that is taking a piece of mat board and I cut it into 2 pieces. Okay, so this is just an average mat. And what I'll do is take the painting and put it in a mat. So I can adjust it to be anywhere, any height, any width that I want. So think about this, guys. Where's that painting I did the other day? I did a painting and I'm like, here it is. This was called The Tired Tourists. And what I can do, this is such a great tool. I could say, well, maybe I only want that much or this much, or maybe I want the whole thing. This helps you find your composition. If you didn't get it on your painting, you could quickly crop out and make a much more interesting painting by just moving these 2 mat boards and finding a composition that maybe makes you a little happier. And so I've done this to a lot of paintings and I'm like, oh, that makes me happier. Hey, Sadie, you want to come and say hi to everybody? Come here. Come here. Here's Sadie. She's a mop.
Thanks again, Jen. We have a lot of compliments. People are writing that they love his eyes. Very nice. It's a beautiful portrait.
Great.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much, guys. And you know what? We did it in record time. If there's any other questions,
I'm going to unmute everyone.
Okay.
There we go. So if anybody's on Zoom and wants to ask their own question, now's the time.
Hi, Jan. This is Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Can you please describe the violet paints that you use? You say you use violet, but which ones?
So I have a lot of violets. It's one of those things that I just use a ton of. And I have, I've got a bluish violet. I got a reddish violet. In fact, better yet, let me get, on my website also is a free download of my palette. This is my palette. And so you can actually go right onto my website. It says free templates or free something. And you can see and download and print out exactly my colors, the brand name, and the name of the color itself.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Carol. Thank you for asking.
那它这个陶瓷的，
哦，
这个摔会破的，对啊，陶瓷。
I think they're not talking to us.
They're in the oven, not the microwave, because they don't fit.
Any other questions?
And I doubt they are now, but just be careful because the metal.
I like when people have their own conversation and they're not muted.
Oh, no, you did?
Yeah,
Oh, no.
All right, I'm gonna have to mute everybody. We have too much background noise.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Jan. And
Oh,
I'm gonna say goodbye.
Thank you for coming. Next week, we'll see what we're gonna do.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for visiting. Grab your
Wonderful.
cocktail, finish it up. I'm gonna go